and 3. We're live, Chair Marks.
Great. Good afternoon. Calling to order the regular meeting of the Board of Ethics and Campaign Practices for Wednesday, February 12th, 2025. As our first item, we have had a draft agenda circulated. Has everyone had a chance to review that? Well, first, let's do the roll call for quorum. Sorry.
Thank you. Member Caffrey?
Here.
Member Colley?
Here.
Member Cuniff? Member Kelly? Member Martinez?
Here.
Member Sullivan? Chair Marks.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay. With that important formality, does anyone need any more time to review the draft agenda? Hearing none, would one of the members care to move to approve it?
I move to approve the agenda for today, February 12th, 2025.
Second.
Okay. That was moved by Member Caffrey, second by Mr. Colley. Please call a roll call vote.
Member Caffrey?
Yes.
Member Colley?
Yes.
Member Martinez?
Yes.
Chair Marks.
Yes.
We have a pass.
And next we have a review and approval of the minutes from our last meeting on January 8th. We either have any comments or is there a motion?
I move they be approved.
A motion by Mr. Colley.
Second.
Was that Mr. Martinez?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. And please take a roll call vote.
Member Caffrey?
Yes.
Member Colley?
Yes.
Member Martinez?
Yes.
Chair Marks?
Yes.
You have a due pass.
Okay. Item 4 is going to be a regular item on our meetings, and we'll be receiving just an update on the status of the 2025 electoral cycle, declared candidates, any emerging issues. And I think we're going to hear from the clerk on that, or from you, Mr. Rocha.
I'm happy to speak on this.
Okay.
Just a quick overview, the qualifying or the exploratory period for mayoral candidates begins March 3rd, so less than a month away. Let me share my screen and we can go through some dates and periods that are covered in this election. Everything can be found on cabq.gov/vote. That is our dedicated page. The important periods that I want to highlight for all of the members is March 3rd through April 18th. This is the exploratory period for mayoral candidates. They will file a declaration to seek elected office, a declaration of intent for if they're seeking public financing. We are open to meeting with the clerk for any candidate. They can begin organizing. They can start collecting seed money at this time for publicly financed candidates. And they can set up any infrastructure to collect those qualifying contributions as needed. The period starts on the 19th. And from there, that's when they collect their 3,000 signatures. There's about 3,780 qualifying contributions that are required for mayoral candidates. And of course, they can continue to collect seed money. The city council starts shortly after. The exploratory period is April 27th through June 1. Again, everything is the same. Declaration of intent, declaration to seek elected office. They can meet with the clerk. Their qualifying period for city council candidates begins June 2nd. Again, The difference here is the number of qualifying contributions and signatures. They are required to collect 500 signatures for every district that is up for this election, which is 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9. And the number of qualifying contributions depends on the registered voters. So they generally range from the number of the low 300s up to about 500. It just depends on the district. Towards the end of this spectrum here is when the qualifying period ends. Both are fairly similar for mayoral candidates. What you'll see is a final submission of any qualifying contributions. That does have to be turned in by 5. I will work with the candidates to stagger their last meeting with us, starting at about noon. I know every candidate wants to wait until that 5 o'clock deadline, but we're limited with staff, so we try to evenly staggered. They also submit their declaration of candidacy. That is a form provided by the Secretary of State that is then turned in from either the candidate or the city clerk to the county clerk for them to be qualified for the ballot. Additionally, if they're applicant candidates, they will submit their application for certification, which the clerk then has 20 days to either approve or deny their certification. Similar for city council, the only difference is the date, which is July 7th instead. I do want to highlight, what does it mean to be a candidate? This is a question that we have so many different times from almost every person that contacts our office. Generally speaking, anybody could become a declared candidate publicly as they see fit. We see certain candidates that were in the journal recently that have declared their candidacy, but they have not actually filed with us here in the office. To become an official candidate on the city clerk's website, there are a few different things that I require. They are required to file a declaration of to seek elected office, file a bank account confirmation, file a designation of representatives form, and register on our campaign finance reporting system. Included in that, they also have to have a treasurer who is separate from the candidate, and they can only open one checking account. All of our forms, again, can be found on cabq.gov/vote. That's the end of my presentation, but I'm happy to entertain any questions from the members or the chair.
Can we close the screen for? Okay, there we go. Any questions for Mr. Rocha? I had one or two quick questions. So if a candidate is not intending to be publicly financed, is there a prohibition upon them raising funds at this point?
No, a privately financed candidate can raise funds anytime during the election cycle, which is defined in the charter as the day after the last election for that seat. So they can raise as of today.
Okay. And as I think I recall on the dates, they can't file the declaration of candidacy yet, can they?
No.
Okay.
That is primarily once we've collected all their petitions. Yeah, they can file. Let me clarify. So there is a declaration of intent, which is filed with us. They can file that today if they wanted.
Okay.
But the declaration of candidacy is the Secretary of State form.
Okay. So the declaration of intent, have any been filed?
I have one candidate that has officially declared and is posted on our website. Her name is Mei Ling Armijo. She is running for the office of mayor.
Any further questions? Okay. Hearing none, our next item is going to be a group of items, and it is going to be a consideration and hopefully a vote on the proposed amendments to our board's rules. And I've asked that we start with a review from staff on the proposed, a review or a presentation on this material changes that are being proposed.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'll lead off on this. And we did prepare a memo for the board on this, which is with your packet. I think the biggest changes are outlined therein, which is we tried to standardize how time is computed across the charter, our regulations, and the board's rules, because there was slight discrepancies in terms of counting in all three of those. We also provided a mechanism and clarified that people could submit complaints and request for advisory opinions via email. We previously required these be submitted in person. We add a new requirement that basically mandates a training on the campaign finance reporting system for candidates. There's a provision which requires that in regards to advisory opinions, there's a provision which requires that basically every 30 days, if after an advisory opinion is requested, that we state whether or not an extension is needed. And in my mind, it's cumbersome to convene the board if we know that an extension is needed. So the rules propose that my office would send out that notice to the parties if another 30-day extension is needed. We have not taken that long in the past on advisory opinions, but it is theoretically possible that we would need a 30-day extension. And just in addressing the logistics of bringing everyone together, I thought it was the easiest way to do that. We do provide a deadline for parties to approve settlements in the proposed rules, which is they now have to approve a settlement within 10 days. We renamed some departments that were incorrectly named in the rules. The investigations section identified that the Office of Internal Audit would do the investigations, but it's actually the Inspector General that does investigations on behalf of the board. And we also, I think one of the biggest things we did was was around automatic fines. There have always been automatic fines in the board's rules, but it has been frankly unclear how they really have worked, and we have not used them now in several cycles. And so the proposed revisions attempt to clarify how automatic fines would work. And basically what we did was we tried to separate automatic fines from other fines, and essentially we would issue an automatic fine notice where, in relation to the types of violations where we think it's like going to be obvious on the face of the filing that it's deficient. So for example, if someone literally does not file their campaign or finance report on time or within the grace period, we think that's sufficiently clear that we could do automatic fines in those instances. But we separate that out from other issues, like where there might be ambiguity that might require a merits hearing. And the final thing we did was we added a new requirement to clarify when the Board of Ethics would meet in off years, and just to make it clear it's biannual. So we'd meet once a year, every other year, and then in election years, we obviously meet more. But that is a general overview of the proposed changes, and I will turn it back over to the chair.
Okay. At this point, we've scheduled it for public comment. If there are any members of the public who were attending the meeting who wanted to comment on the rules, we would hear that now. Mr. Rocha, do we have anyone who's not a city employee or board member on?
I don't have anyone in the waiting room, and Chair Marks, I did not receive any written submitted comments.
Okay. Thank you. Then next step will be, do any of the members have any questions for Mr. Watson about what we heard or what you've read?
Quick question, just when was the last update of these rules? Mr. Watson?
We made a small revision with the board last year, but prior to that, honestly, I want to say it's been probably over a decade.
Okay.
It's been a long time. And so the other thing this wasn't substantive, but we did structurally move things around a bit as well because it didn't really align anymore with parts of our process. And so we tried to, but yeah, it was long overdue, frankly.
Sure. Well, good. Total agreement with the changes, so thank you.
So, so to be clear, Mr. Watson, thanks. When you're talking about automatic fines, you're in that section M and N, and it will be the board issuing the fine, but we've delegated that authority to the clerk on these, basically on these, obvious cases.
Correct. That's I think what we're trying to clarify is for things like a failure to file, we give them a short period of time to correct the issue, but then if they don't, we will send them a notice basically that fines have started to accrue. If they have some good explanation, they can obviously appeal that to the board and then we can have a merits hearing on it. But where there's a clear issue that we think we want to encourage them to address it, we wanted to add the automatic fines in there.
Okay.
And clarify how they work, which I think we've done.
Okay, can we go to page 16? Where that is, and in M3, I think there's either a punctuation or a word missing that I don't think I caught when I was looking at this earlier. But M3 where it says, what we got here? If the failure is corrected within 10 days, it's moving too fast.
There it goes.
Okay. Is there supposed to be the word "and" in there, or a comma, or both, or?
Board teams any has been no violation.
Or is that if comma?
It just, that part seems to me that if the failure is corrected within 10 days, the board, it kind of automatically deems that the omissions are inadvertent and made in good faith. I mean, you could insert a few more words to make it more obvious, but to me, it's sufficiently clear.
Okay, yeah, I think that's what it means too. I think it will be.
No pride of authorship here. If the board has,
Can we say if the failure is corrected within 10 days, comma, it will the
board shall deem it
no, I don't think it's the board. So
Okay.
I want to take the board out and make it passive. The omissions in the report will be deemed inadvertent. I mean, I guess that's what we want to do. If the failure is corrected within days, any omissions will be deemed inadvertent and made in good faith. And
Or is it just that if they're corrected, then it doesn't move on to a potential next?
no fine shall issue.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be easier.
is it, I mean, that's the same 10-day period and above, right? It's the grace period.
Correct.
Correct, okay. Will be deemed.
I mean, so that we don't have to be deeming anything about intent. Maybe the simple thing is just to say if the failure is corrected within 10 days, no fine shall issue.
Okay, that's much better. Thank you. Can we do that? If the correct, no fine shall issue and the matter shall be,
Hmm.
the matter shall be closed.
Hmm.
Does that sound right?
Well, I mean, the matter won't be closed because there'll still be the record, well, probably just no fine shall issue
Okay,
because you'll still
okay,
have the
no fine
record
shall
of it.
issue. Okay,
Issued with a D?
shall issue,
Issue.
oh, issue, yeah, or,
Okay.
or be issued. Thank you. And then we appealed 10 days. Right. And could I ask folks to look at page members? Can I ask members to look at page 9? At the top under number 5. There we go. Okay, this is the procedure when there's been a settlement. So there's been a complaint. The respondent campaign has negotiated with the staff a resolution, a settlement agreement, and those settlement agreements get presented to the board for approval. So that's the context. My question or concern is in the middle here. When the board meets to consider and either approve or reject a settlement agreement, we're going to do it in a public hearing, which is appropriate. But the question is, should that next sentence, testimony shall not be allowed at such hearing, nor shall argument of the parties be accepted. My recollection, and it's vague, has been that we have heard from the parties when we've had settlement agreements. And I'm wondering if other members recall whether that's been the case and whether we want to retain the ability to hear from the parties, their attorneys, as to why this is a good settlement, and potentially ask factual questions.
I don't personally remember, but so when I read no testimony what shall be allowed, definitely that means we could have an introduction of this settlement comes before the board through this and this circumstance, blah blah blah. But there's no witnesses. No one's going to be sworn as a witness to testify. The argument maybe maybe we should focus on that part, whether we can hear argument, but then I mean argument about why the settlement's good, or argument that, oh, I really wasn't guilty of this, but it just settles anyway.
I would want to hear that. I mean, if somebody comes before us saying, I really wasn't guilty of this, I settled anyway, and if the facts would suggest that there was a clear violation, we would wonder whether this is a good settlement, wouldn't we? That the person's not actually taking responsibility for misconduct.
And Chair Marks, the final sentence in that section essentially kind of, even though it's not spelled out in the overall paragraph, it does anticipate statements made and potential statements made potentially. So I think the term testimony is probably being used more as under the like on the record type of statements. I don't think that it necessarily prohibits the board from hearing statements from the parties, if that makes sense.
So can we make that clearer? It sounds like we don't want to take sworn testimony. We don't want to take evidence.
Yeah. Trying to think how to do
Maybe
that.
the board will not take evidence in such a hearing. And
at a public hearing,
Uh,
testimony shall not be allowed and evidence shall not be accepted at such hearing.
well,
Testimony shall not be allowed.
well,
Or neither testimony nor evidence shall be heard at the hearing.
I suppose we could also, just to help clarify, can have a statement in there to the effect of, at the request of the board, to give you guys some authority to allow a statement in or not, that, parties may be allowed to make statements prior to
yeah,
its acceptance.
you could, how about this? The board may permit parties to make statements in support of the settlement agreement, but shall not take testimony or other evidence on the record. Or other record evidence. How about record evidence or other record evidence? Period.
Still
To
missing the board.
submit, or did I say submit? I think give statements. I mean, it's live. Statements.
I think, after statements, statements in support of
Yeah.
the agreement, of the
Yeah.
settlement agreement.
You know, you could be replaced with a computer. Like, you remember those dictating programs we used to
Right,
back in the day? Except you're able to,
Is that correct, Chair Marks? Is that
Yeah.
what we're looking for?
I think so. Ms. Caffrey,
Uh,
you think?
let's see. Upon accident, through you. Board members. Sure.
I would
Okay.
just maybe put agreement after settlement, of the settlement agreement.
That's fine. Good. How about the other members, any comments or I mean, the lawyers are occupying the field right now, but we're all gonna have to do this. We're all gonna have to be comfortable when we get a settlement in front of us. So weigh in if you think this works or doesn't.
Sounds good to me. Yeah, no, thank you for taking the lead on this, but yeah, sounds good.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Martinez. I appreciate, actually, I think it was yourself who took the lead on this and substantially got this draft worked into this form with staff. So thank you very much, Mr. Martinez. So,
Sure, Miss Caffrey.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Okay, let's close the screen sharing unless there are any other points about specific parts of the rule. Hearing none, is there a motion to adopt the draft rule with the changes we've discussed today?
I so move.
I think that was Mr. Colley.
Yes.
first.
And I'll second.
Ms. Caffrey. Okay, the motion before the board is to approve the draft rule for our for the Board of Ethics with the changes that have been made to the draft today. Mr. Rocha, can you take a roll call vote?
Member Caffrey,
Yes.
Member Colley,
Yes.
Member Martinez,
Yes,
Chair Marks.
Yes,
We have a do pass.
thank you. And thank you, Ms. Caffrey, Mr. Martinez, and Mr. Watson, and Mr. Rocha. This is very painless process. But these are critical rules that I believe will serve us well if we wind up having any controversies this electoral cycle. So thank you for the work put in. Item 9 is other business. If there is any members have any matters they wish to call our attention to, or the staff have any matters they want to call our attention to that would not be subject to action today? Hearing none, I will remind the members, if you haven't done so, follow that link that Mr. Rocha sent around last month to do the board and commissions training. And you'll find an informative and not well-produced presentation, mostly from Mr. Watson. It exceeded my expectations. So don't be afraid to do it. It won't be that bad, is what I mean. And with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. Second, please. Mr. Colley and Mr. Rocha, roll call vote again.
Member Caffrey,
Yes.
Member Colley,
Yes.
Member Martinez,
Yes.
Chair Marks.
Yes.
We have a due pass for adjournment.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Have a good afternoon. We'll see you back here next month.
Thank you.
Thank you all.